Filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza joins me now, along with Rick Leventhal, veteran journalist who has done extensive reporting on the ground in Israel and in Gaza over the years. Gentlemen, good to have you both on. Dinesh, the left, as we see here, just keeps moving closer and closer to insanity on some of the most important stories.
Well, the left has been using a framework of anti-colonialism to try to understand all this, and they label Israel as a colonial occupier of the region. Now, what makes this, of course, preposterous is that this was originally Jewish land, and there's constant archaeological excavations that confirm this, that this is the ancestral land of the Jews. In fact, when Islam came around in the 7th century, it conquered Jordan and Syria, Christian lands. It also conquered Jerusalem and much of the Middle East. So Islam is, in fact, the colonial power. But all of this gets twisted beyond recognition somehow in the activist left. And that's the result of a lot of the kind of false labeling that you see in this debate.
Rick, you took a total of 14 trips to that region, including a full month in Gaza, which takes tremendous guts. We're going to show some pictures you provided from inside Gaza. That's in 2014, after Israel leveled large sections of the Strip. How does what we're witnessing now compare to what you saw yourself? And what do you make of this moment?
Well, there's no question that Israel has the strength and power to do what it did then and then some, and will, because they need to. They need to retaliate against these awful acts of terrorism. It's appalling to me that the BBC and the CBC and even the New York Times wouldn't flat out call this what it was, which was the worst barbarism, the worst brutal terror attacks that we've seen in a very, very long time. This was an awful situation. And I get the argument that Palestinians need help, but these Hamas terrorists do not represent peace-loving Palestinians. And what happened here was not an equal argument between two sides. What happened here was an absolute aggressive, uncalled for attack against innocent grandmothers, babies, and civilians murdered for no reason other than Hamas hates the Israelis.
Dinesh, as Biden takes heat for funding the attack by obviously opening up that money that had been frozen with Iran, this afternoon, CNN reported that our intel community is now claiming that Iran was surprised by the Hamas attack, which flies directly in the face of Israeli intelligence and also the Wall Street Journal reporting that Iran, in fact, was a big part of the planning and funded this. It sounds to me like there is somebody in the intel community that's desperate to keep Biden in office and to protect him from another horrible mistake in foreign policy.
Well, this new claim that sort of the Iranians themselves didn't know is only being floated now that the original defense of the Biden administration completely collapsed. The original defense was, yes, we have provided the $6 billion to Iran, but it's sitting in an account where they haven't actually drawn down on it yet. In other words, the defense was that you cannot show that the actual dollar bills given to Iran were the ones that were used in this attack. Now, most people pointed out, well, this is absolutely nuts. If you're funding a bad guy and the bad guy is using their own money to have nefarious schemes and then reimbursing it with money that's coming in from the U.S., well, you're ending up subsidizing the terrorism, aren't you? So then they realized, well, that's not going to work. So now we need a new line on Iran. Why don't we just say the Iranians themselves didn't know?
If I could add to that, Rob, Iran funded attacks against our own troops in Iraq and Afghanistan repeatedly. They were largely responsible for many of those deaths of U.S. soldiers in Iraq. And they have called for the death of Israel. They are obvious enemies, and we know they fund Hamas. So there's zero question here that Iran has its fingerprints all over this.
Yeah, there's not. And it sounds like you can get anything you might politically need from a few people in the intel community these days, including something like the fact that the Hunter laptop was fake Russian misinformation. It kind of matches right along there. Dinesh, Rick, good to see you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.